I believe Kashmir is not merely a geospace, it is a geocultural matrix from which thoughts and concepts have emanated, spread far and beyond into the rest of India and elsewhere, Central Asia, Afghanistan, Tibet, China. I visited Kucha. Kumarji was from Kashmiri origin and he spread Buddhism in that part of Xinjiang and beyond into China. So ancient texts repeatedly call Kashmir Mandala, which denotes spatial and temporal locus in terms of sacred geography, but also has geopolitical ramifications. Kashmir has made lasting contribution in core areas of Indian cultural and intellectual endeavors from aesthetics, poetics, dramaturgy, historiography, linguistics, literature, folklore, transmission of Mahayana Buddhism, Shaivism, and other arts, thus becoming an inalienable part of India's spiritual and national consciousness. Some scholars describe Kashmir as northern outpost of Indian culture, and many prefer to call it as the fountainhead of Indian culture. State presents a clear-cut case of ethnic, religious, and linguistic heterogeneity. Jammu is inhabited by Hindu Dogras and Gujars. Valley of Kashmir, though predominantly Muslim, is also inhabited by Hindus, Sikhs, Shia Muslims, and Gujars. Ladakh is predominantly Buddhist but has a sizable section of Shia Muslims. Gilgit-Baltistan is inhabited by Shias, Dards, and other minorities, and thus there are at least 10 distinct language culture areas: Kashmiri, Dogri, Gojri, Ladakhi, Balti, Dardi, Sheena, Burshaski, Potwari, Rambani, Bhadrawahi, Sraji, Pahadi, Kishtewadi, and Pogli. So, what Kashmir is famous for is the historical, traditional, eco-cultural heritage which is evolved as a result of harmonious blend of nature, manifested in snow-capped mountains, beautiful valleys, meadows, flowing cascades, streams, springs, lakes, rivers, and rich flora and fauna, and the artistic, resilient, and lively people. So such the interaction between man and nature in Kashmir imparted its own characteristics to its region's heritage, social and cultural life. Then another facet is the rich composite and secular culture which survived and flourished due to fruitful interaction between Mahayana Buddhism, Shaivism, Sufism, and indigenous Rishi order. Both Kashmiri Muslims and Hindus have had common shrines, saints, and seers. In fact, it is due to this ideological upbringing and psychology that the Kashmiri Muslims overwhelmingly supported state's accession to India, which presented a secular and democratic model as against the theocratic Pakistan in 1947. Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah minced no words in expressing this view. I quote, "There is no place in Kashmir for a theocratic state. We have made our choice and linked our destiny with India." And the Kashmiri Muslims stood against tribal and Pakistani invasions of 1947, 48, 1965 and 1971, providing unflinching support to Indian security forces to repulse these attacks. So what happened after 1989 and in 1999? I remember in 80s, even in 87, 86, my grandmother used to, if we had some guests, special guests, so she used to go with a chicken or get a duck, and there was only 2% in our village who would cut this chicken or duck, and what that too at क्या बोलते हैं सायंकाल, मतलब I don't know, it was around 5 or 6. He used to wait, recite some verses then, and this was the situation I remember till 1986, 87. So how suddenly this thing it has happened? So these are things to be pondered by Indian masses, Indian politicians, Indian media, Indian academics. What I have been observing, unfortunately, during the past 3 decades, about 3 decades of this Kashmir conflict, is that it has generated a whole stream of conflict entrepreneurs who feed on this conflict, who breed on this conflict, and who propagate further this conflict. There is no They are just skipping the things. There is no diagnosis, and there is no diagnosis, or they know things they don't want to say, or deal. They have no guts to deal with it. So the problem is that the structural changes which were brought in at the cultural levels of Kashmiri society, at the socio-political setup in the valley, which was thought or implemented through by Pakistan, ISI and other groups through their pet local Jamaat Islami, then Hizbul Mujahideen and now Duktarani Millat and some other groups. So it is the pernicious external influences and terrorism which dealt a severe blow to the indigenous cultural heritage and society based on rich and composite cultural ethos and peaceful coexistence of diverse cultures and faiths. Revival of indigenous art and culture, language and literature, social formations, festivals in Kashmir will greatly help in restoration of its composite social culture ethos, providing a positive alternative to people to articulate their aspirations. Restoration of indigenous traditions, heritage, human rights, security, freedom of faith and religion, duly safeguarded by appropriate legal, administrative and institutional arrangements and structures, is the sine qua non for peace and security in Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmir provides a test case for success of democratic and secular fabric of India. Nehru made it explicitly clear in his presidential address to Indian National Congress in 1951. I quote, Kashmir has become the living symbol of that non-communal secular state which will have no truck with the two-nation theory on which Pakistan has based itself. Sheikh Abdullah stressed this point again in Delhi in 1948 when he came here on a visit. While Kashmir remained out of Pakistan with its overwhelming Muslim majority, it continued to expose fallacy of Jinnah's two-nation theory and challenge the soundness of the very basis on which Pakistan was formed. And he firmly believed in this. I remember I was there after Bangladesh was liberated in 1971. However, during the past 30 years, things have changed. Enough of water has flowed through the Jhelum. There has been massive psychological offensive, strong arm tactics adopted by Jamaat Islami, Ahle Hadith, Duktarani Millat, Hizbul Mujahideen to wean away the Muslim majority of Kashmir from. They are basically Ahle Etiqad. They believe in Sufism, Rishi order and local shrines, and so they have not succeeded in erasing this tradition-based ideology and ethos. Majority of the common masses, I repeat, I stress common masses, not educated masses. Educated masses have been swayed by the conflict, and many of them have themselves become entrepreneurs in their conflict. I will cite one example, it is not in this. 2 days back or 3 days back, there was a report in Hindustan Times or some paper that 45% of the valley is suffering from depression. That means, because I checked from the horse mouth, direct person who is dealing with the subject, and for many other things we have no means to cross-check, because whatever is coming through papers or other means, it is also a psychological war. It is part of that. So, Kashmir's accession to India is the bedrock of the unified secular state of India, as was envisaged and fulfilled by Nehru and even Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah. I would state here what is the Pakistan's view on it. Pakistan's interest has been from day one. Their Minister M.A. Gurmani, he was the Pakistan Minister of Kashmir Affairs, right day from 40 since Pakistan was born. I quote him. He said, Kashmir is an article of faith with Pakistan, not merely a piece of land or a source of rivers. We are fighting for Kashmir on the same principle as that on which we fought for Pakistan. We took a solemn vow that we would secure for all areas of the subcontinent where Muslims were in the majority the fundamental right of self-determination. describes Kashmir as Shahrak, that is jugular vein, and unfinished agenda of partition. So this is the continuing, the policy of Pakistan is, it has not changed right from 47. Pakistan claims strategic interest in Kashmir on the basis of its geographical proximity, contiguity, common border, close economic relations, and religious bonds with Kashmir, besides its rivers. So if we go through the discourse on Pakistan army, its composition, etc., you will find that a sizable portion of Pakistani army is now Islamicized. So build up and strengthen Islamic identity by education, training, and information. Now I was referring to what the Pakistani strategists and what their political leaders have been thinking about, what has been their vision about Kashmir. Now the reality is that Pakistani occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir, to see this territory, they include highly strategic area of Gilgit, Hunza, Nagar, Chilas, Astor, Gupis, Gizar, Punyal, Ishkuman, Yasin, Baltistan. They are situated at the tri-junction of Hindu Kush, Karakoram, Pamir mountains, where frontiers of India, China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Central Asia meet. So this region is highly important for the security of defense of north and northwestern frontiers of India. The very fact that boundaries of China, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, Tajikistan converge at Gilgit-Baltistan lends a unique geostrategic importance to this region, and it is through this region that Karakoram Highway passes from Xinjiang into Pakistan, providing Pakistan direct land access to Central Asia. And now China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. This area forms the core of the CPEC, and both countries, $42 billion project of this CPEC. So enjoying a central position in the network of overland caravan routes, this region acted as an important gateway for India to Central Asia and beyond, even to Afghanistan. As I said earlier, Dogra rulers followed a consistent and proactive policy in this strategic frontier, which facilitated their direct and friendly communication with neighboring Central Asia. I have discussed that very in detail in my first book, Central Asia and Kashmir, which was published in 1988. It should be here in the Teen Murti. So that is based on everything on archival records, around 40 to 45,000 files I consulted in National Archives, Jammu records and Srinagar records. And following the communist takeover of Xinjiang and this road was closed to traffic, and the traditional trade which used to flow from Yarkand to Leh and Srinagar and Punjab, it ceased to flow since 1949. And it is not that Nehru was not conscious of this. He was acutely conscious of the importance of this frontier area as India's only corridor, overland corridor to Central Asia. And as the first Prime Minister of India, he wrote a letter on 20th August 1948 to Joseph Corbell, Chairman of United Nations Commission for India and Pakistan. I quote, "The authority of government of J&K over sparsely populated mountainous region has not been challenged or disturbed. Commission resolution, as you agreed in the course of our interview on the 18th, does not deal with the problem of administration or defense in this area. We desire that after Pakistan troops and regulars have withdrawn from the territory, responsibility for the administration of evacuated areas should revert to Government of Jammu and Kashmir. We must be free to maintain garrisons at selected points in this area for dual purpose of preventing incursion of tribesmen and to guard the main trade routes from the state into central." I should also mention those days, because it was a heyday of Cold War. US and the West were very much worried about the communist presence in China and in Soviet Union. Then they were peeved at Nehru's policy of non-alignment. So a former chairman of US Atomic Energy Commission, David Lilienthal, he wrote an article, I quote, "Direct issues whether historic region of J&K shall be part of India or Pakistan This is no ordinary dispute over international boundaries. On one of these disputed regions lies Red China, on another Red Tibet, along another frontier is Soviet Russia. Another US writer, Lawrence Rosinger, wrote, interests of US presumably arose in part from a strategic location close to USSR, bordering on Afghanistan, China, Turkestan, Tibet, India and Pakistan. So it was with the aim of converting Kashmir into a military strategic strong point that the West initiated vigorous drive for induction of UN troops into Kashmir through various means, and Owen Dixon and others, Nimitz proposals in the UN at that moment. So the Chinese occupation of Aksai Chin, also of Ladakh, it provides the vital link between Xinjiang and Tibet. Then, following Indian defeat by China in 1962, China and Pakistan signed a border agreement in March 63, following which Xinjiang's border with PAK was delineated and Pakistan ceded about 5,000 kilometers of Shaks-Gamwat valleys to China. Now this highway is being expanded and rebuilt to make it all-weather highway and expressway, railways, oil and gas pipeline, giving immense strategic advantage to China in terms of speedy transport of its armaments, military forces, securing easy access to sea, resources of Central Asian republics and energy supplies from West Asia. The latest Chinese plans to build CPEC in this region are pose serious security challenge to India in this region. So, before I move further, I should show you something. I had an opportunity to be to Tajikistan. So I spent about 15 days because I have been studying borders. So I went straight, after a few days in Dushanbe, I went straight by road to this Badakhshan, Pamir-Badakhshan region. And after Kargil war in 1999, I made a point to visit by road from Srinagar to Kargil, Dras and Leh, spend about 14-15 days. In Kargil also, the old man who stayed in his hotel, he was very lamenting that had ceasefire taken place only 12 hours after, Baltistan would have been with us. And they still, the people of Kargil, they are Shias, Baltis, and on the other side of Baltistan, they are Baltis. It's common fraternal and even intermarriage, marital relations. So they lament each other's, separation. Though the Kargil-Askardu road was agreed to, but Pakistan is not allowing it to be, to rectify. Because the Indian story will be then relate to the people there and they will know what is the difference. Because they have settled down Pakhtuns and Taliban cadres also into that region. Punjabis are there. They are of course from Punjab, but Pakhtuns also. So in order to dilute the Shia population majority there. So this point you can imagine, had Gilgit been with us, Tajikistan, I have been to Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, every country laments, they want India to be proactive, they want India to have direct business dealings, trade relations, everything, strong relations with, because they are not interested, they are doing business with China under compulsions because there is no alternative. They don't want to continue with Russia also, erstwhile because former Soviet Union. So they wanted an alternative from this end. And now imagine, had I not gone there, I would not have, because my story of this region was incomplete. So I believe that Valdosh, some separate entered into Valdosh and he virtually dragged me. मैं कहता हूँ मुझे नहीं जाना, मैं मर जाऊँगा वहाँ, वैसे ही उधर बच गया बाल सच्ची बहुत. He dragged me to this point. And do you know, this book, it came suddenly at this point. I decided to write this, the entire view on POK. So this is a result of this. A flash came to me that I should start. It took 2-3 years, but this is now to conclude. Due to its geostrategic location, abutting borders of China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, being in close proximity to Central Asia, Jammu Kashmir is the central strategic frontier of India in its north. It offers India the only overland access to Central Asia. However, independent India lost the opportunity of having direct overland access to Xinjiang and Central Asia after it allowed Pakistan to illegally occupy vital strategic territory of Gilgit-Baltistan and POK in 47-48. India needs to safeguard its interests in the strategic frontier by securing direct overland access to Afghanistan, Tajikistan and other Central Asian countries, and also to ensure that it has peaceful, tranquil and benign neighborhood. Taking into account the concept of strategic frontiers, India needs to determine the area within which no hostile or potentially hostile focus is to be allowed to exist or develop so that national security is not threatened. Both houses of Indian Parliament unanimously passed a resolution on 22nd February 1994 expressing deep concern over Pakistan's role in imparting training to terrorists in camps located in Pakistan and occupied Kashmir, supply of weapons, funds, assistance in infiltration of trained militants, including foreign mercenaries into Jammu and Kashmir with the purpose of creating disharmony and subversion. So the resolution stated Pakistan must vacate the areas of Indian state of J&K which they have occupied through aggression. So Parliament of India has thus laid the policy framework in terms of retrieving its lost territory in Jammu and Kashmir. Time has come for India to take all necessary steps to reverse its adversarial situation and free itself of the strategic bottleneck it has been facing due to the continued illegal occupation of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. This will enhance the prestige and stature of India among the neighboring countries of Central Asia and Afghanistan, which are eagerly looking forward to see India playing a balancing role vis-à-vis China in the region. It will once for all resolve the vexed Kashmir problem, which has been sapping the energy, resources, morale and profile of Indian nation state both within and outside the country. By doing so, India will secure its appropriate international position proportionate to its size, population, geopolitical position, economy and status of a rising power. Thank you.